The knock came at exactly 2 a.m., soft but urgent, the kind that makes your heart jump before your mind can catch up. I was already half awake, staring at the hotel ceiling, thinking about my daughter back home and the school trip I couldn't afford to miss paying for. When I opened the door, there she was, my boss, standing in the dim hallway light, eyes red, voice barely above a breath as she whispered, "Can I come in? We need to talk." In that moment, every line between work and life, respect and rumor, fear and hope blurred, and I knew whatever she was about to say would change more than just this night. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in slowly, clutching her coat like armor, and suddenly the expensive hotel room felt too small for the weight she carried. I was a single dad used to holding things together with duct tape and prayer, used to late nights and early mornings, but I'd never seen her like this, usually sharp, controlled, the kind of CEO who could silence a boardroom with one look. Now she looked like someone who had been running for years and had finally stopped because there was nowhere left to go. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking. "I shouldn't be here," she said, then laughed bitterly. But I didn't know where else to go. I stayed standing, unsure where to put my eyes, my hands, my thoughts. She told me about the merger, the pressure, the board that wanted her out, the threats disguised as polite emails. She told me about the divorce that left her house echoing and the nights she worked late just to avoid going home. And then she said the words that cracked something open between us, "Everyone sees me as strong. No one ever asks if I'm okay." I understood that feeling too well. I told her about my wife's accident, how one moment I was a husband and the next I was explaining to a 5-year-old why mommy wasn't coming home. I told her about learning to braid hair from YouTube, about burning dinners and missing promotions because daycare closed at 6. We weren't boss and employee anymore. We were just two tired people sitting in the quiet, finally saying the things we never said out loud. When she finally left before dawn, nothing improper had happened, but everything had changed. At work, rumors tried to grow, but we kept our distance, professional and careful. Still, something unseen had shifted. She started asking about my daughter by name. I started seeing the exhaustion behind her authority. And when the board pushed harder, when my position was suddenly under review, fear wrapped around my chest like a vice. I'd been disposable before. I knew how this ended for people like me. The day HR called me in, I thought it was over. Instead, she was there too, standing tall, voice steady, defending my work, my value, my integrity. She risked her own position to protect me. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just kindness, it was courage. Months passed. The merger failed. The board changed. She stayed. I stayed. Life didn't suddenly become easy, but it became honest. And then one evening, after a company family event where my daughter fell asleep on her shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world, she looked at me and said, "I don't want to be alone anymore. But only if you're ready." I didn't answer right away. I went home, tucked my daughter into bed, and listened to her breathing until I was sure my heart was steady enough to speak. The second knock came weeks later, not at 2 a.m., but just after sunset, at my apartment door. This time, I opened it smiling. She wasn't whispering now. There was no fear in her eyes. Just hope. We talked for hours, about boundaries, about healing, about building something slow and real. I told her my daughter would always come first. She said she wouldn't want it any other way. Love didn't arrive like a storm. It arrived like morning light, quiet and certain, filling the spaces that had been dark for too long. And I learned something I want everyone watching this to remember: strength doesn't mean standing alone, and asking to come in, whether at 2 a.m. or in your life, can be the bravest thing you ever do.